Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Kerry Magro, professional speaker, author, and autism self advocate. And happy Autism Acceptance Month to all of you. Today's April 1st, which is the beginning of Autism Acceptance Month, where we discuss and celebrate those who are on the autism spectrum. I have a very special guest here with me today, my wonderful mom. So many of you write to me on Facebook wanting to hear the perspective of my mother. So I thought, why not have her included in a Q&A for the first day of Autism Acceptance Month? So Suzanne Mack wears many, many hats. And Mom, I'm just really excited to have you on today.
Well, I'm happy to be here for April. It's not only tomorrow is April 2nd, which is World Autism Day, but it's also my sister's birthday. So
Yeah. And you just talked to your sister recently. How is she doing?
very well. She's up in New Hampshire.
Good. Well, as we're going along, everyone, feel free to like this video, share this video, and to comment if you have any specific questions. And we'll try to get to as many questions as we can during this hour that we're talking today. But I also want to share a very, very special shout out. We have a book coming out tomorrow. My book, Supporting Your Autism Journey, which is actually currently available for pre-order on Amazon, focuses on a wide range of topics impacting our autism community, from ABA therapy to employment, to schooling, IEPs, special education, and so much more. It will be out tomorrow for World Autism Awareness Day, but on the ticker that you could see right here on your screen, you can pre-order it. In addition, the pre-order link is available in the description of this post as well. So we have a few people who are already writing in saying, so great to see you, Sue. And then also, hi, Sue. And hi, Kerry Magro from a Facebook user. So, Mom, I guess an introductory question I would love to ask you is just, what were some of my challenges growing up, and what were some of the things that helped you during my autism journey, especially when I was just diagnosed at 4?
Well, that's an interesting question because I guess the journey really starts when you started daycare, which was much earlier, about 1. You went to a very nice daycare center with a lot of really nice children and nice staff. Because I was working full time and building Hudson. I was actually building a light rail system at the time, and Dad was working. So we were one of those people who had this nice child who we took to daycare every day. And in the beginning, it worked out very, very well. But when you turned 2, you switched rooms, and it was interesting that you were growing up, and the toddlers went into this other 2-year-old room, and the first week you were there, it must have been October, the firemen came in to do a safety demonstration for the children. And they brought little plastic hats and little stickers and things like that. But apparently when the bell went off, they rang the fire bell. You got very, very upset. And, the school called us and said that they couldn't quiet you down. Like they understood that you were scared, but, you just had a reaction that was like very unusual. And it got to a point where you didn't want to go back in the room because I guess you thought that sound would happen again. So it became increasingly difficult to manage you in the in this little daycare setting. And they suggested that we have you evaluated. Now, we started to have you evaluated, didn't know how to get you evaluated, but we started. And that didn't really work out too well. And then eventually we got you evaluated at a place called the Institute for Child Development in Hackensack. But it must have taken like 18 months. It took a very, very long time because, as parents who may be on this call today starting this journey, when you go through a system of being evaluated, there is no one definitive test for autism, and there is no one definitive medicine for autism. It's really, it's diagnosed symptomatically based on your symptoms. And therefore they do it in a manner, what they call team staffing, where they have a neurologist, a psychologist, an OT, a PT, a speech language. So it's always been, unless you have just a doctor who is at the top of their field that can just look at you, and actually that's part of your story. That after you spent 18 months being diagnosed at Institute for Child Development and came out with like a page and a half of diagnoses, you then went to Margaret Hertzik, Dr. Hertzik, who was the head of the Cornell's Institute for Autism, and she spent 2 sessions with you and confirmed your diagnosis at between 4 and 5 as pervasive development disorder. So, I mean, there were a lot of things going on. I mean,
Hey, Mom, let me just fill in real quick. Are you okay? Your eyes were closed.
Oh, no. What happened was my eyeglasses. So my eyeglasses.
Oh, okay. Got
yeah,
it. I just wanted to make sure you were doing okay.
No. So my eye was itchy.
Oh, okay. No worries. Continue. Sorry.
No. So, I mean, I guess, there's a long way around. I mean, you had delays early on. You had delayed speech. You had several delays, and you were an only child. You were a boy, and I say that because what happens when you go to doctors and people, when you first go to people, they say, "Oh, well, if you had a sibling, then you would learn to speak from the older child." Or boys sometimes speak later than girls. So being a first-time mom, I didn't know. And, we just tried to roll with it. But we did realize at some point that you did have delays that had to be dealt with. And it seemed like the older you got, not older, but I mean, going from 2 to 4, there were more issues. You were stuck on transitions. I would drop you off in the morning and you didn't want to get out of the car. You would cry. You didn't have a lot of speech, but you did have verbalization. You cried. And then I would pick you up in the afternoon, and I couldn't get you to stop playing with your toys to get back in the car to come home. And if for heavens, if I had to take a different route or take a different street, that really upset you. So there was a lot of things that back in the day, I don't even think there was a book on autism that would actually say no eye contact or changes in routines would be upsetting. But back in the day, all of these things just were out there. And I guess over time, I realized what pervasive development disorder really meant. It took me years, but what it really means is that there was a little bit wrong or a little bit off in a whole bunch of different things. So it was pervasive, and it was a disorder. And thankfully we caught it at between 4 and 5. I talk to parents now who are asking me about their children that are 8 or 9. That's not too late to be diagnosed. I think you've diagnosed people that are 54.
Right.
Who are relieved to get the diagnosis because they say that they've always wondered why they were, this way or that way. So for parents out there who are starting this journey, no matter where your child gets diagnosed or where you start the journey, there's definitely hope, and there's definitely people out there now that can really support you, which, believe it or not, I didn't really have back in the day. So
yeah, very, very well said. We have a few comments coming in for you, Mom. So the first question that came in is from Carmen. Hey, Carmen, thanks for joining us. And Carmen writes, how was potty training? She says, sorry, I need help with my 5-year-old.
Is that for me or you? Because I think both of us, you have a chapter in your book on that, I think also.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask your opinion, and then I was going to chime in on the book.
Well, that was another issue, believe it or not. Like, you originally followed the milestones to get potty trained, and then you lost potty training. So we were moving ahead with the little thing that you carry around to have the little kids go potty in, and you were doing that. And then again, this was one of the things that you regressed on and lost. Like everything else in my book of how you got to be you, we came up with a reward system for about everything. We kind of followed you around the house and saw something that you liked. And once we saw that you liked it, some people would say we spoiled you, but I think we were ahead of behavior modification in the sense that we would tell you, oh, here's your potty, and you would sit on it, and then we would say, oh, be a big boy, be a good boy, blah 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 blah, and if you did it, we would reward you. And I think that's how we got through everything at that age. It just seemed to be the only thing. And we're not talking about rewards. We're talking about a sticker. We're talking about a high five. But we praised, we went for the positives. If there was any hint that there was a positive thing going on, and even peeing at that point was a positive thing, we would praise you and reward you. But you cover that in your book, I believe, that chapter a lot more.
So, Carmen, in my book that's available for pre-order on Amazon, Supporting Your Autism Journey, which is out on Amazon, one of the things I talk about is I have a chapter on potty training. So I talk a little bit about the importance of meeting your child where they are in their development when you're starting off this process. Also, the idea of scheduling daily bathroom breaks during the day. So many of the autistic kids that I know really are focused on routine. Reward systems are a great idea that my mom also mentioned as well. In addition to that, one of the other things that I highlight in the chapter of this book, Supporting Your Autism Journey, are actual perspectives from other parents on what helped them during their journeys. So one thing that you'll get from this book, and Carmen, please definitely let me know if you'll check out the book in the comments. But Mary Barbara, she is a phenomenal woman who has an autistic son. And she actually created a step list on how to get somebody to use the toilet for the first time, a 6-step action plan on how to actually do that. So you'll get all that great references in the book. But the most important thing I could say about this topic is just really just try to meet them where they are. Look into any, we'll also talk about in the book, but food allergies, any underlying conditions that might be associated with the child might potentially want to go potty, but they might not necessarily have the ability to go potty. Gastrointestinal issues are a big challenge within the autism community. So definitely check that out for sure. We have another question coming in. This one is from Adrian. Hey, Adrian. Adrian writes, how did you become more communicative? My 3-year-old has words, but no communication, some gestures and hand leading. So Mom, I know that in this book, I talk a little bit about my early communication challenges. Can you just touch base on that a little bit?
Yeah, that was really the most frustrating part of it, because we knew you wanted to communicate. As I said, you definitely had sounds. You babbled, you laughed, you giggled, you cried. So we were blessed in that sense, because some children don't have any. They don't have any sounds. But what we basically did is we just we would talk to you a lot, and that's for any parent, and we'll find out that children will learn to read if their parents read to them. But we talked to you a lot, and we did what everybody else did. We had speech therapy, and we also, I did something. I bought Hooked on Phonics, and again, I would try to do a page or two a day with you, just to point to you so that you could see the sounds and get a reward. You got your stickers. And again, it did not come easily. It came very, very slowly, but when it did come, it really did come. So, I think your first word was juice, or Jew. You wanted your juice. So you have to concentrate on something that, the child is really wanting or looking for. But I understand parents' frustration with this, because they just want their child to communicate in some way and have sounds. And it's just very important. And I would say that for all parents, a speech therapy is probably the professional that can guide you most on that. And most states, at least New Jersey, has early intervention for children that are under 3, where they will come to the house and evaluate the child, and then have the therapist come to the home. And then after they're 3, as you know, from 3 to 21, you are covered by the Individuals with Education plan for school systems, which you go and get evaluated by the school, and then the school is required to provide speech therapy. But I think between your pediatrician and your caregivers and your speech therapist, that's, don't give up. It does come to most children. If it doesn't come, the advances in communication these days, and Dr. Carey can talk to those. That's not my area, but I see Dr. Carey working with many children on. Carey, you want to jump in on the communication devices that are available for children?
Yeah, sure. So we touch a little bit on non-speaking in the book. And one of the things we discuss is the idea of music therapy. It's important to understand the differences between non-speaking and nonverbal. Non-speaking typically means that an individual may have sounds, and it's important when an individual does have those sounds to encourage those sounds. So one of the things we discuss in supporting your autism journey is the idea of music therapy, theater therapy, and really just meeting a child where they are in their development, especially when they start first making those words. Also encourage mimicking as a way. If they mimic different things they see on the television or they watch in movies, that could be a way to lead to further speech down the line. Again, you don't want them mimicking every single thing because you want them to go about the conversations. So it's really, really important that we have larger conversations of what that looks like. Adrian, I would love for you to check out the book. For people who are just joining us, I've included a link to our new book, which is available for pre-order, Supporting Your Autism Journey, where you can learn a little bit more about that. We have a few comments coming in. Christine wrote, just ordered your book. Christine, thank you so very much for purchasing the book. It really means the world to me, not only as an autism advocate, but there are so many incredible. We have about 60 chapters in this book, everything from employment, schooling, toilet training, non-speaking autism, and so much more. Adrian had a follow-up question. Will your book be available in print form? Adrian, great question. The book is currently available in paperback, so in print version on Amazon, in addition to Kindle as well, for those who prefer the electronic version as well. So we have a few more questions coming in, and this question is just great because I forgot to mention it at the beginning. Chen Rima says, where do you stay, madam? So my mom is currently based in Jersey City, and I'm based in Hoboken, both in the wonderful state of New Jersey. So if everyone could tell us in the comments, where are you tuning in from today? That would be awesome. We have this great question that came in from Jessica. Hey, Jessica. Jessica writes, my daughter spoke some words, then stopped speaking at 3 years old. She sometimes says mom, dad, abu, and up or no vocalization at night. She's in speech therapy 4 times a week, 30-minute sessions, and OT 3 times a week. And ABA goes to school with her Monday through Friday. I always wonder if she'll speak again. My daughter is 6 in May. It's still not potty trained. So moving, Carrie's autism journey. So, Mom, just from your perspective, I know you don't know a lot about this topic, but what are your thoughts on ABA?
I really don't have many thoughts on ABA because when you were diagnosed and when you started school, ABA wasn't in existence. So it was not a therapy that was offered, because it was therapy that was offered, you would have had it. The one thing I would like to say to any parent out there is that when this parent's talking about a wide array of services that she is getting her child, you did the same thing. I mean, you had speech, PT, OT, sensory integration, dysfunction therapy. You had them basically from the time varying between the time you were 2 and 15 years old. So, I mean, I know you've said it to me several times that, you thought your therapies was like a full-time job on top of school. So I'm not saying that, everybody's going to have the same outcome that you are, but I'm saying that we did not see a lot of progress in the beginning. We just kept going. So like, you really didn't get into, and I've learned the meaning of expressive and receptive language disorder, because, like I said, you had a list 2 pages long of things they said that were off. And your child may be able to understand you and what you're saying them, which is receptive language, but they can't express it. And that's the thing that is really frustrating for parents. So, I mean, I've heard a lot of good things about ABA. I've heard parents that don't like it, and I've also heard things like playtime or floor time. I think again, but I think the thing I would say is that you have to have some. This is a communication disorder, so you have to have some sort of focus has to be on communication and speech. So whether it's ABA or floor time or just speech therapy, it seems to me that is an integral part of of getting the child to get to its best place. But it took you a long time, and I'm sure it's taken a lot of other children a very long time. You don't see the progress for 2 or 3 years, and then all of a sudden you see it. Hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my book, that was kind of like one of the biggest parts that we kind of wanted to break down. So one of the things that I did with this book is in the 60 questions that I cover in this book, I turned each question into a chapter where I discuss how I perceive the world around those specific questions. And the top 10 questions that I've received about autism, one of the top 10 is focused on how do I feel about the ABA controversy? Because there are a lot of, especially autistic self-advocates, who feel very negatively about ABA. Again, there's no one size fits all when it comes to this topic. One of the things we discuss in this book is about the idea that when ABA is done correctly, it focuses on increasing language and communication and improving behaviors. That is the ultimate goal we want from ABA therapy. So in my book, Supporting Your Autism Journey, which is available on Amazon, and the pre-order link is in the description, one of the things we discuss is the ongoing debate that's going on. I think the ABA debate and controversy is warranted, especially for those practices that try to take away the autism from somebody. That's what we're talking about when we talk about this ABA controversy. Trying to make somebody, for example, who's stimming as a way of self-regulating, that's not injurious to other people, them trying to take away the stimming to make them quote unquote normal, and trying to take away their neurodiverse condition to try to make them a little bit more neurotypical. So we really do a deep dive. We talk a little bit about the Autism Society and what their current stance is, in addition to multiple parent perspectives. So I would definitely check that out if you're on kind of the fence on whether or not to get your child ABA therapy at this time. So we have a few more questions coming in. Thank you all so much for telling us where you're tuning in from. Adam is tuning in from Nepal. Thanks so much for joining us, Adam. Here Nepal is beautiful. We have another person who's tuning in from Bedford, Massachusetts. We have somebody tuning in from Brazil. We have somebody tuning in from India. This is amazing. And we have so many more incredible questions coming in. We have people commenting that their son is thriving in ABA. Really glad to hear that. We also have this question coming in from Subadi. She writes, which school did you go to, special ed or private preschool, when you were little? So, Mom, this is a great question, because I've kind of been all over the spectrum when it comes to that. So what are kind of just like your opinions on like public, private, and then homeschooling?
Well, that's a mouthful. That is really a mouthful. So I'll go back to your situation to start with. Now, you were, as we said, you were in daycare, private daycare. And then you got kicked out of private daycare, not one, but two. You got kicked out of 2 private daycares. And then you were technically homeschooled for your 4-year-old period. Somebody had to watch you in the home. And then we probably would have put you in some sort of private school if you had not had the autism, but we were thrust into the public school system because we didn't know what else to do. And I will continue to say that the public school systems are probably the best place for you to begin a journey, because they have the best diagnosticians available we actually had to privately test it in New York City, very expensive. And now we're in the educational setting, not the diagnose. And that private testing, very expensive, and the public schools did just as well. So I do believe that public schools have enough resources normally on that side of it, to do the testing and actually come up with your education plan. Delivery of services is maybe something else. So you started in a preschool handicap class with Miss Barbara Balsamo, who I give a lot of credit to. She had 15 little munchkins, girls and boys like you, with an array of disabilities. But it was a preschool class in a public school, and that worked for a couple of years, and then it didn't work. And then eventually we sued the school system to get you an out-of-district placement to go to a private school. That was a little complicated because I was on the Board of Education, which I went on to try to see if I could take care of you. And I stayed a long time. But so, we did see that the public school system was not where you needed to be at a certain point. And we did, you were being bullied. It was just not a good setting. There was, too much of a ratio, just too much disruption. And you actually then transitioned into a private program. And there are many private schools. I know we have a lot of people from around the world that this may not be relevant to, but there are many private schools for the private schools for the handicapped. There's usually associations in each state that you can look that up. And you actually did very well going to, I think you went from the 5th grade to actually through high school. Just the change in attitude, where every person in the school was trained, and there was much smaller classrooms. And I hear you speak about go to where the kids teach to where the kids are. Well, in your school, you could have been, and you probably were in the lowest group in reading and language, and you were in the highest group for math. And that actually pretty much continued right through college. I mean, you have very good math skills, and always a little bit behind in the verbal. So what would you think? I mean, autism is a communication disorder, but I think you have to, for parents who are in the US, you really just have to look around. You have to see, and you also need to reach out to other people who have children. I know, Kerry, you did your dissertation on parents. You might want to discuss parents at some point, what you found in your dissertation for your doctorate, because you had a wide array all over the country. You had military families, you had people, in places where there was absolutely no services, and places where there were decent services. So I think they all had a common theme of how they got the diagnosis, what they did, how long it took, which takes much too long. And you had a wide array of different fits. And I'm not against public school education at all, if it works, not against special programs if they work. Charter schools, I find, don't have the resources sometimes. They just don't have the money to provide the services that either the public or the private schools have.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my book, Supporting Your Autism Journey, which is now available on Amazon, one of the things I talk about is I actually grab perspectives from parents who have had children in public school, private school, and homeschooling scenarios to share their perspectives of what really helped them the best. We saw that it was no one size fits all. Some thrived in public school, some thrived in private school, and some thrived in homeschooling. Especially after COVID-19, it seemed like there was a little bit of a better structure at home for many of those individuals, especially as we're seeing a staffing shortage in a lot of our public and private schools after COVID-19. We're having a struggle trying to find strong educators to come into our schools to take care of our children with disabilities. One of the things that we noticed is that from the public school sector, though, if a public school had a large amount of funding and was not a Title I school, I had parents reach out to me who said that social skills were a benefit versus a private school where there might be less students, and then homeschooling, obviously, where there would be no other additional students to help build on social skills and the importance of that. From the private school perspective, we just heard a lot of similar conversations around the student-teacher ratio. We saw that a lot of parents preferred private school in that case because, for example, when I was in school, it was about 25-1 in public school to 8-1 in private school. For community lower school, which is a private school for those with disabilities, it was like only 160 students. And then later on, the high school was the same thing, just about 8-1 student teacher ratio. That's really where I thrived during my autism journey. But again, it is going to be vastly different. And then on the homeschooling perspective, again, we just saw so many students thrive after the COVID-19 pandemic. There's a whole chapter in my book focused on not only the ongoing debate, but also what the benefits and potential challenges of each area fit into. So definitely check out that if you have a chance. We have a few more people writing in that they're going to grab a copy of the book. We really appreciate that. If you guys are going to check out the book, we consider it the greatest compliment. If you would like to check out the book, it's available on Amazon. If you are going to grab a copy, definitely write in the comments and just let us know that you're going to check it out. We consider it the greatest compliment, and we really appreciate you doing that. We have another person coming in, Jessica. Hey, Jessica. Jessica writes, Emily uses an assistive talking device, Proloquo to Go. That's, Jessica, ironically enough, the one I recommend in most of my presentations. I want to give her a way to communicate, and she uses it as much as she can with communicating. What are your thoughts on these devices? Jessica, that's a great question. So I truly believe in the importance that if a child can't speak, it doesn't necessarily mean they can't communicate. That's something that I talk a lot about in my book, but it's also just something I do in my talks around the country. I now have a full-time job as a professional speaker where I get the opportunity. We have 29 talks during the month of April. Please send coffee if you can. But some of them are in the schools. And one of the things we talk a lot about is the idea of not only Proloquo to Go, but also Tobii Lightwriter devices, finding ways of using technology to help encourage communication. We also see a lot of emphasis right now on American Sign Language. So if you have a child who's on the autism spectrum, being able to understand how they learn best is really, really important towards reaching developmental milestones. For example, some individuals might be visual learners. Some might be auditory learners where they learn best by hearing, and then some might be kinetic learners where they learn best by moving around. If you have a child that's a kinetic learner, they might be able to thrive using American Sign Language as a way of communicating. So again, it's all based on meeting your child where they are. We do talk a little bit in the book about the idea around non-speaking autism, though, and what can be best done to support these individuals. Oh, Marquita, thank you so much. I'm going to get a copy of your book. I'm a mom of a 3-year-old autistic boy. It's new to me still, learning about it. And that was a big reason, Marquita, and for all those joining us, which is why this book was so important to me to write. Because after I did my dissertation, I looked at the perception of resources for parents of children with autism who are in online communities. And I realized that a lot of parents, especially once they started this autism journey, felt like they were in deer in headlights, and they really were uncertain about what the future was going to have in store for their child. And for all the parents who are joining us, I just want you to know it's that 90% of parenting is just showing up, and you are making a difference, not only by joining us today to learn a little bit more, but hopefully by just checking out the resources that we have provided and are available for you to check out during your autism journey. So it definitely takes a village. And we realize that because a lot of the times it feels like And granted, there's some great doctors. I had a great doctor. His name was Barney Softness, who really helped me tremendously. But there are other doctors who kind of just give the diagnosis and then don't provide those resources. So I often say in many of my talks, autism doesn't come with an instruction guide. It sometimes comes with a family who will never give up. But with that in mind, I did want to try to provide some form of instruction guide to help parents, whether you're a new parent or a parent that's been in this journey for 20 years. We just received an Amazon review of our book already, and it was from a parent of a 20-year-old autistic child saying how helpful it was to have this book, even for an autistic adult who was just diagnosed when they were 18 months old. So it goes definitely a long, long way. Markia also writes, I have a question for mom. Did she ever go through meltdowns and crying nonstop? And if so, how did she handle that?
I think I tore off the visor in my car once because I was crying so hard, and I had just dropped you off, and I just, didn't know what to do. I think I probably almost broke my hand more than once banging on the steering wheel, because a lot of my issues really were like in that pickup and drop off point. I don't know how I handled it, to tell you the truth. I think you have to find a way. I think now a lot of people, and in you, Carrie, you are very into having not only the children have routine, but the parents have routine of getting respite or getting exercise. I was so busy working, I didn't have that luxury at the time, but I think I kept busy. I think I kept busy with work. But to all the parents out there that just have their own meltdowns, you have to find, you're certainly entitled to it, and you should definitely find a coping mechanism if you can to do it. Maybe it's ice cream, but it's definitely something where you can't be a parent and go through this without having good days and bad days. And you know what it is? It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. It goes on, and you wake up the next day and you start over again and you start over again. And it really does. I've talked to, we're all part of the autism parent community, and then we have I tell people we're a very tight knit community, and we are, because we speak the same language. All of our kids basically go through the same cycle that I see. And our kids are different than the neurotypical kids. Parents are parents. Parents love their kids, but our kids have different challenges. And whenever I talk to people, I was outside of Boston a few years ago, and I was talking to a parent who had driven to see Kerry and didn't know who it was, and we wound up going into a restaurant after his speech, talking, and I just closed my eyes and I said it was the exact same journey Kerry had taken. She had the same routines of how she, what she was going through and how she got her son diagnosed and what she was going through. So we're kind of like a club. So you're very entitled to your meltdown, just as your child is.
Yeah, absolutely. Let it out. Cry when you need to. It's so important to understand that your emotions are valid throughout your entire journey in life, regardless if you have a child who's on the autism spectrum or not. You have to realize that not only are your feelings valid, but every single day is a learning opportunity. I met a man who was going blind in his adult years, who had a great quote where he said, don't confuse a bad day with a bad life, because each and every single one of us in this world are going to have a bad day. But we have it upon ourselves to find those coping strategies, to find those ways to turn those bad days and remind ourselves that we are going to have another day, like my mom just said, and being able to kind of latch onto that at times and understand that today is not going to be the rest of your life. But you have to train yourself to go about that process, for sure. We have a few more people coming in. Danielle, you are so sweet. Book ordered. Thank you for all you do. That means the world to me. Adrian, thank you so much as well. That means the world. Jessica, also thank Thank you so much. Sabadi. And again, I'm awful with names. People often call me Carrie Margot at the end of my presentations, even though it's Carrie Magro. So please give me a little, yeah, it's quite a struggle sometimes. Oh, and just as a follow-up, Marquita wrote, got it. I want to know, how did Carrie ever go through meltdowns and some days just crying and couldn't control him? So to answer that question, Marquita, and I'll let my mom chime in a little bit as well. One of the hardest things about, you know, having these meltdowns is sometimes I give this analogy a lot, where it's like you're trying to, you have every radio station playing in the background and you're just trying to tune to one station, but it's so hard to tune to that station. You hear all the auditory and everything feels hypersensitive during these moments where you feel overload. The loud noises get dialed up to 11. The feeling of the wind on your skin, if you're out, it just feels overwhelming, like 100 pins just going into your skin. So it's important. My mom gave me a sensory brush, which I used with an OT, which is basically just the size of the palm of my hand, which we would use as the way whenever I felt any specific trigger of any sensory sensation, I would go back to that brush as a way of going back to a place of normalcy. I mean, so many autistic people do that by stimming, which is whether rubbing their hands together or flapping or moving their entire bodies around to self-regulate. So Mom, what were some of the other ways that helped me during these times of meltdowns?
Well, I think you're going to the issue of, well, first of all, you did have the meltdowns. I mean, I think you, like all children with autism, have meltdowns, but I remember like taking you out in the car, like in the middle of the night in your car seat and driving you around, because that seemed to, again, you have to find what calms them, you know, what would calm you down. But I think some of your worst meltdowns were really in that 4 to 5 year age range, where, you know, you just would cry incessantly. You just wouldn't stop crying. Sometimes you just have to let the child cry it out, but making sure that they won't hurt themselves. But I think you brought up a good point about the sensory brush. You had sensory integration dysfunction also as part of the list of things you had. And so you had a lot of sensory issues. You know, you couldn't be bathed. You didn't want water on your skin. You had a lot of challenges. And I think it's important for people to realize you had those challenges, because looking at you now, you talk about autism as an invisible disability, but you still have some challenges now, sensory related. You should see him fly. He flies a lot. And flying right now is not a good thing in the turbulence up there. But I think, you know, the sensory brush for you did have an OT. Bob Shepard was your first OT. He came to the house, and he showed us how to use the sensory brush, which, as you said, is very similar to stimming. I mean, I think you flapped a little bit here and there, but I don't remember you really stimming too much. It's probably because you did have the sensory brush. You had something that would release the tension that you were feeling. And I always say, try to center you down and get you back to normalcy. So yeah, yes, children will have meltdowns. I was thinking about it today when I was driving home. I remember because somebody mentioned to me this morning about getting a behavior therapist to look at a child, and I was thinking about that. I remember when you were about 5, we did hire a behavioral therapist, because at the time you would come in and part of the snot transition, you would hit your head against the door, which isn't a good thing. So. But that didn't go too far. But you know, you just do what you can to take your child from where they are. You try not let them hurt themselves. And again, it seems to me that these things get better, or at least it appeared to me that things got a little bit better and a little bit calmer as you got a little bit older.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you'll see this in some individuals. It might not necessarily be the case for everybody. We definitely won't say that you can grow out of having autism, but in terms of the specific challenges, I mean, obviously there's so many individuals who are able to progress via different therapies. So we had some great comments that came in just based on this. And Adrian wrote, we use deep hugs. And I go back to Temple Grandin often, who's one of the leading autism advocates who I get the opportunity to talk with quite a bit. And then I have spoken at several conferences with her over time, where she has the squeeze machine, which she's known for her movie as a way of self-regulating, but also weighted vests, weighted blankets. All these are great ideas. Fundandfunction.com has a great wide range of resources available for you to check out that are all focused on sensory. So definitely check that out if you have the chance. Go ahead, Mom.
Carrie, I just want you to, I read the book. Thank you for letting me read it. But if I was looking at this book, because it still is, it's just one person's opinion, though you have autism and you have a doctorate and you have all those other good things and you certainly have experience in the field. But what I like best about the book is the resource section, because you take every issue, you take you take everything you've done and everything you've learned. And so if I was a parent and I was starting with a 3-year-old, I now have a book, not only that I can read, but I have a resource guide and like, just look on the internet. I mean, there's 100 million things now that you can look up, but are they valid? Do they work? Blah, 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 blah. So I think the pages that you have on your resource guide in the back is really like one of the prime selling points for the book.
Yeah, I love that part as well. Just from the perspective, it's like I'm actually looking at it right here in our resource area that some of you may be able to see. One of the things we do is we break down every single resource that we mentioned in the book. We also have a list of references for where we got the information as well from the leading groups in the field. Autism Speaks, Autism Society of America, Pacers Bullying Prevention Center. This is going to not only give you my perspective, but it's also going to, and parents' perspectives, educators' perspectives. We had a great educator, Stephanie, be able to provide her own insights based on being a teacher who has autistic students in her classroom as well. So definitely check out the book because of the perspective that I will give you a snapshot of not only resources that some of them are free resources for you to take advantage of, but just what are some of the leading resources in the field today.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on the woman that Carrie is talking about is Stephanie Curran. She's a teacher of the handicap in the Jersey City public school systems. She's taught 15 years. And I listened to her, and I hope I'm going to see her later today. I listened to her, and she supports her children so well, and she has such an interesting perspective of the world and how they treat her students, her autistic children. I think I'd like to see, not only will I enjoy seeing, the little part that she had in this book, but I hope that she'll work with you more. And that's the other thing. Carrie does take emails from anybody, thousands of emails. But and we're going to hope that Stephanie will be able to help us starting in the fall answer more of the parent emails on advice. I call it from the classroom, advice from somebody who's actually wants to support autistic students and have them succeed and really has some experience in it. So I'm looking forward to working more with Stephanie.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we do in the book, which is if I don't provide an answer for you on a specific question that you have, one of the things I do is I include my contact information in the book. That way, for whatever reason, we didn't get to your question. We often say that it takes a village. I included my email in there because if for whatever reason you read the book, it doesn't help answer all of your questions, you're going to get the opportunity to email me directly so we can have a one-on-one conversation on how we can help you get to that answer, regardless if you're an educator, a parent of a child, a therapist. And in addition to that, we also have a chapter on employment, on hiring autistic people. We have a chapter on first responders and how to help first responders best interact with individuals who are on the autism spectrum. We just saw a few weeks ago about the story of the kid in San Bernardino who was 15, autistic, and got shot. The parents, he was having a meltdown and he unfortunately lost his life. So it's really, really important that we discuss all these topics. But within all of that, sometimes we might not necessarily be able to get to everything. Autism is a spectrum. So including that was really, really important for me. Jonathan writes, "Hey, Carrie, I know you had autism just like me." Jonathan, thank you so much for tuning in. One of the great things I think just from many of the school talks we've given over time was the fact that some individuals after our talks, they come up to me afterwards and they say something on the lines of, I was just in Boston recently speaking to a middle school, and an autistic student came up to me afterwards and he said, "Carrie, you made me feel seen by speaking at the school today." And that's honestly one of the greatest compliments, but that is something I would have loved to have when I was growing up. We didn't have any of the Autism Awareness Month presentations, assemblies, and we have gone a long way, but we still need to talk about representation in our communities today. So we have a few more questions come in. This question is from Sabedi. Sabedi writes, "Did you have an auditory disorder and how did you handle that?" Mom, just based on my early challenges, did I have any auditory specific?
Yes. So if we probably should just publish your first diagnoses, the 2 pages of it. You had and probably still always will have. It's called auditory processing disorder. So again, as part of the comprehensive evaluation of children of all areas. At first, a lot of people do the auditory, put a lot of emphasis on it because one of the reasons children sometimes don't speak is because they're deaf. And so it's important to find out that whether the child can actually hear. If they're not hearing words, they don't know how to repeat them. They don't know how to learn to speak. But auditory processing basically is that you hear it, but you don't process it in a correct way, or it takes a delay in you understanding it. So it comes in, it's got to get somewhere to be heard. And so yes, you did have auditory processing disorder. And I believe basically as we talked, you were having 15, and people who are doing ABA today, I'm told it takes 15 to 20 hours a week of therapy. Well, if you added up all of your therapies, they were probably taking the same. And I believe your auditory processing got better through your speech therapy. So again, you go back to expressive and receptive language disorder. So like as you were taught to speak and to hear language, your auditory processing capabilities became better. And I would say still when you were in college, I know that you had trouble with language, some of your professors, because I know you taped some of your early classes, and if they had an accent, you couldn't hear it because you just couldn't process it correctly. And I know that you then addressed that by getting your notes typed and things like that. But so I guess to some degree, you probably still have a little bit of auditory processing, but that is one of the things I believe can be worked on and actually improved.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a question come in from Bethany. Hey, Bethany. My daughter was diagnosed with autism before she was 2 years old. She's 4 now. And I find that as she gets older, she gets more frustrated with not being able to communicate verbally. Yeah, I feel you there, Bethany. She knows a bit of sign, but it is challenging trying pictures to show her options for things because she doesn't connect her feelings or what she wants with the pictures. What would be the best way to help her communicate her feelings? Bethany, I mean, I have seen so many parents thrive with picture cards that show different emotions. I know that might not necessarily be something that works best for her. But also the idea of being able to really rely on any kids her own age, really encourage play dates with other kids. And when you're doing that, definitely journal and document as much as possible, because being able to have peer-to-peer interaction can definitely show you a little bit more from just a spectator perspective. It might be challenging at the time when you're communicating with your son, but being able to take a spectator position could potentially benefit you from understanding how he best communicates. Mom, where are some of your thoughts here?
No, I don't think I have much to add to that. I think unfortunately a lot of these questions have to be answered in the locality of where the parent is and what support group that they can actually get. This one I think is a little more challenging, and because it's, you need professional guidance or some other parent guidance to help you through your own individual situation with your child. But it's a good question, and I'll start thinking about it, and Carrie will start thinking about it. And if it pops up in one of our future emails, I'll start to talk to some people about it also.
Yeah, Bethany, definitely check out our new book, Supporting Your Autism Journey. In that book, especially considering your son is 4, we do talk a lot about topics around things like toilet training, food aversions. That's actually a big part of our book that we haven't had the opportunity to talk about right now. Food aversions. I can't tell you how many spectators there are in the world that say something on the lines of, "Oh, don't worry so much. Your autistic child will eat when they're hungry." And that couldn't be farther from the truth. We need to have larger conversations because there are a large group of autistic individuals, not only children, but adults, who have large food aversion challenges. And we actually have a chapter dedicated because of those challenges today.
I want to just follow up on that also, because you had some great input from a parent of a child who's now out of college who had severe food aversions when he was little, and a lot of it was just about the temperature of the food. So they had to actually write in the IEP that the food had to be food had to be heated because the child was at school all day. And who would have thought that was the issue? But each child is different, and food aversions, texture and taste and things is a piece of this puzzle that has to be looked at.
Yeah, absolutely. Monique wrote, "Hi, Carrie, what's your take on ABA therapy?" Monique, when you play this video back, we talked about ABA therapy in the first half of the presentation. In addition to that, in my book, there's a chapter dedicated to ABA therapy. So Supporting Your Autism Journey, the link to pre-order the book is on Amazon. Definitely check it out if you have a chance.
And Carrie, where is the link to this recording? I got a question in the chat box asking me where will the link be for this?
Sure. So on my Facebook page, Carrie's Autism Journey, once we end this Facebook Live, you will be able to replay it and watch it whenever you like. So as long as you go to my page, you'll see the video pop up right away. Just as we conclude, this is a great question to kind of just end off on. Fanny writes, "I just wanted to ask how much therapy did you have a week in the beginning? Did that change with time, or did it stay the same?"
Well, I think we've talked about that a little bit. I mean, obviously in the beginning, you had a lot of therapy, and then you were only 4, but then when you went into the school system, I believe you still had some private therapies, but then the IEPs tend to pick up some of those services. PT, OT, speech definitely get picked up by the school systems. And then you still required and needed more therapy. And as I said, it did drop off. As you got older. I think when you got into high school, you still had some therapies. And by then you were doing music therapy and you were doing presentations, which helped you a great deal. The music therapy of being in plays and being able to, have empathy for other people that, you had other things that were going on. But I believe it does fall off. The important thing is to get as much as you can in the beginning in order to have you progress. Once you progress, you can drop off. It can be more of a support system. But I do believe, not intense therapy, but I do believe getting as many therapies, early intervention sometimes isn't until you're 9, 10. But wherever you find a child diagnosed, that's when the early intervention begins.
Yeah, absolutely. Miriam, thank you so much for including the link to my book in the comments. If you go to the link bit.ly/myautismbook, that's where you can pre-order the book. In addition, I include a link in the description. Definitely check it out if you have a chance. It would be the greatest compliment to me. And with that, I would just like to give a very special shout out to my wonderful mom. We actually just in a follow-up, we had a woman who knows you, Mom, said, thank you for this presentation, great information and advice. She said that you are awesome. KH Angel, she said earlier, your mom is awesome and you're sensational yourself. Maybe you don't know her personally, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But thank you all so much for joining us. Mom, thank you for starting April with us for the beginning of Autism Acceptance Month. Again, my name is Dr. Kerry Magro. Feel free to like this video and share this video if you think any parent, educator, or community member might be able to take advantage of that. And we'll see you next time. Mom, any final thoughts?
Just thinking through it, today is the first day of April, and whenever you do this, you always get such great questions from parents, and perhaps if your schedule permits, perhaps you'd like to do it again later in the month or in the month of May when your 29 speeches are over.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you all so very, very much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.